So, Jay, I want to talk a little bit today about taxes, if we could, because a lot of people that have been watching the show, they have a lot of questions about where are taxes going to go in the future. So let's start off and talk a little bit about that. Why are tax rates so important overall?
Well, look, I mean, when it comes to taxes, it's really the question is how much of our own money do we get to keep and how much are we putting back into the government for government spending and other types of things. The real major concern recently has been, as a country, as a nation, we have taken on a lot of debt in order to, achieve a lot of great things. There's been a lot of help that needed to go out, especially during COVID and before. But it's really important to understand that when the government has all this spending, they also need to generate income to offset that spending. And the number one form of income for the government is taxes. And so with all this increased previous spending, plus the plans that are in front of us right now for a lot more spending than we've ever seen in the history of our country, there's got to be a plan to repay that debt.
Sure.
And, you can only print so much new money, and at some point you've got to be worried about the value of the dollar. So we're thinking that tax rates are likely to go up. And we've got a slide, right? The historical tax rate. So maybe what we'll do is, in a minute, we'll jump over to that, and Stephen can kind of talk us through where we are now versus where we've been historically in terms of tax rates.
Okay.
But before we look at the facts, the figures, the important thing to understand here is that when we are taxed, when money leaves our paycheck or our income streams and goes, off to Uncle Sam and the IRS, we're left with what we're left with. The goal for us, especially as we think about retirement planning, is to keep as much of our income, as much of our savings as we can, and reduce the tax burden in the future. But if today we agree that we might be at lower tax rates, and tax rates are likely to rise for two reasons. One, all this increased spending I've been talking about.
Sure.
And two, there's something else called reversion to mean. And all that means is that things tend to gravitate back to the average. This is the definition of average. So if we can agree that we're at somewhat low tax rates as compared to U.S. history, especially the top federal tax rate, then the direction in which tax rates are likely to head is up. Now, that's just using mathematical analysis to say we're going to go up over time.
Okay.
But coming back to we're spending lots of money, we've got to take that money from somewhere.
Yeah.
We're going to have to, as a country, pay more in taxes. And you can only tax the most wealthy so much. And even if you tax them 100%, you never cover all of the deficit that we have plus the excess spending.
Sure.
So there's going to be a large tax issue that's going to hit most people over the next many years. And having a tax plan is critically important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. And to add on top of that, we know taxes are going to go up. So we know for one reason for sure, because at the end of 2025, the current tax rates are going to revert back to the previous tax rates.
Okay.
So income taxes are going to be going up regardless. If we do nothing, they're going up. And with the current administration, this isn't a political conversation, but current administration has said they're going to raise taxes, and they have proposals to raise taxes, especially the capital gains tax rate, upwards of potentially 40% on the federal level for capital gains. So, so not only do we know taxes are going to go up unless something changes, and with the current administration, those things are probably not going to stay in a lower level. They'll probably go to a higher level, but then also probably even increase from there, especially on the capital gains side, where a lot of people are worried about, because a lot of people we talk to, they have, the market's done phenomenally well since 2009, right? So a lot of these people have brokerage accounts that have tremendous growth inside of them, and they don't want to sell their positions because they're worried about the taxes they're going to be hit with.
Sure.
Or people with rental properties. People we talked to a lot of people who have rental properties that have, it's done great for them throughout their lives. It's created that cash flow, that income every month, but they just, are getting tired of being a tenant, dealing with tenants, toilets, and trash.
Okay.
So, but they don't want to sell because it's appreciated so much. They're going to get hit with so much in capital gains that you need to start looking at strategies to help eliminate or at least defer these capital gains over a long period of time.
Okay. Yeah, and I think it's really important, right? So we're referring to these tax rates resetting. So currently we're under something called the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which lowered taxes and keeps them there till 2025.
Okay.
So that, as you said, is going to expire in the next couple of years here. But I think that the other thing you hit on is the capital gains tax. We just kind of mentioned it, but the impact of this is so severe. up until now, the way that people have always tried to manage their taxes is you've got ordinary income, which is where you're paying the highest amount of tax rate usually.
Okay.
And then you hope that on your investment income or on the sale of your assets, you pay that lower ordinary or lower capital gains tax. But if we go into this new proposed tax structure, that's higher than the current highest ordinary income tax rate if we go to 40%.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people who have all this deferred wealth that were planning on utilizing that for some of their savings and their income in the future, this could be a huge devastating impact and blow.
Of course.
Compared to that. And I really like what you said about the eliminating or deferring taxes. But there are now more modern ways of tax management where you can defer, reduce, and eliminate taxes on your capital gains.
Okay.
So these are all really important advanced tax planning topics.
Yeah, and we've been getting a lot of calls and a lot of concerns around taxes, especially the capital gains, since when Biden went out and spoke and gave us a talk probably a month or two ago about raising it, because that's 40% on the federal level, guys. Then you still have state taxes, and we live in California. So you're talking now north of 50% on a capital gain investment. And, so it's, I think there's going to be other issues that come from that personally. But I mean, how do we plan for that? How do we come up with the right strategy? That's what we need to start talking about now, and having those deeper conversations to come up with the correct plan to deal with them.